Hey guys, this is John. All right, this is round 7 of the Lone Wolf League on Lichess, season 37. We've been grinding through the games. I've had a lot of long games and interesting battles, and there's more to come. This is 11 rounds, one game per week of 30 plus 30 chess. I've been really enjoying this season and this league in general. So thank you guys all for watching. So, an update on the standings going into round 7. I have 5 out of 6. I had that one loss to Happy Mode a couple rounds ago, and then I've won all my other games. And in this round, I will be playing this player, Foznaz83. They're also on 5 points. And interestingly, they took a couple half-point buys in the first 2 rounds and then won 3 in a row. And then I think in the last round, most likely their opponent didn't show up, or maybe there was some scheduling mishap and they genuinely just couldn't make it. But Foznaz83 got the full point victory. So Foznaz is undefeated, and they're rated 23-34 classical on Lichess. Good player. This is going to be a good battle. You can see the point totals. The player who beat me in round 4, Happy Mode, they were undefeated, and they actually lost in the prior round to Pirates of the Frisians right here. And that has resulted in 3 players reaching 5.5 out of 6. And they're all tied for first. Just a half a point away from a perfect 6 out of 6 score. So a lot of chess still to go. The field is pretty open still. Starting to get that separation. There's a lot of players on 4.5 coming into this. But if you have 5 points or more, I think you're in pretty good shape as far as competing for first in this league. But a lot can still happen. All right. So that's what's up for this week. Let's get into it. This is an interesting game. You'll see my prep as usual, and then we'll get into the game after that. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's roll the tape. All right, so 30 minutes before the game. That's what I've been trying to target roughly in doing this preparation. It's really fun to see on the fly in this league what my opponents play and discover real time with you guys. I'm totally living in the moment here. How I think this game might go and what I want to do. What I want to prepare against a certain player, how I want to steer the game strategically, some long-term considerations, if those can be worked in. So here's Foznaz83. Good player. Very consistent across time controls. So good bullet player, good blitz player. Rapid classical, obviously pretty high. A lot of rapid games I notice. A lot of games in general. So I don't think we're going to be lacking in material here. Let's click into the classical games. In theory, the highest quality games that this player has on offer. And I do have the white pieces. So I think I'm going to focus on the initial games here, at least looking at what Foznaz does. Oh, this is a game where they had white. With the black pieces. Oh, looks like they got... Oh, are they playing the 45-45 league as well? Wow. Okay. I was wondering why the colors were going like this. But yeah, this player appears to be in both leagues. Quite interesting. Oh, this is funny. His opponent last week played the Scandinavian against him. Okay. So here's a game that catches my eye because Foznaz played the Nimzo Indian. Yeah, one of the best openings in chess. One of the best overall defenses to d4. Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty logical for both sides. I guess black made a mistake somehow at this point. What, allowing knight takes e4 maybe? Or knight takes d5? Oh, no, probably knight... No, this is not a pin. Wonder why that move is a mistake. Bishop e5 wasn't the move. I was just curious. Ah, bishop a6. I missed that as well. Okay, so Nimzo Indian player against d4. Yeah, so a lot of players have difficulty facing this. Not difficulties. You almost have to construct your d4 repertoire around knight f6 and e6 because that is such a respected move order, giving black the option of this Nimzo Indian, but also being able to duck into other defenses too, like the Queen's Gambit declines, Queen's Indian defense, if white tries to play knight f3. There are many different possible transpositions here. So that's something we'll consider. And Foznaz eventually won this game. Looks like they were somewhat worse, but eventually won. Okay, go back. Here's a game they played against E4. They played French. This was a C4 game. They played E6, D5. Yeah. So if someone plays the Nimzo Indian against D4, I instantly think, like, what did they do against Knight F3 or C4 on move 1? Because those can be considered anti-Nimzo Indian defenses, or openings, I should say. But yeah, if black goes E6 and D5 and is okay with playing Catalan positions, you're going to get something pretty solid, more than likely. As in, black's position is going to be pretty reliable. That said, I mean, I wouldn't mind playing a position like this. This looks very nice. So how did this come about? This came about via a pseudo-Catalan where Foznaz took on C4 early. And then played C6, a little bit of a defensive move. See the commentary here, too. Maybe we can even glean something from that if we looked really deep. Positions seemed quite passive. However, it was necessary to avoid prep and play into a line I have experience with. Bishop F4 was expected, but not unwelcome. Some ideas to play Queen A8. Looks like some middle game comments. Okay. Yeah, so just from looking at a couple games, this player looks quite solid. They seem to play classically sound openings. Here's another Nimzo Indian 20 plus 10 game from a couple months ago. Bit of a sharper line. Yeah, this player looks solid and plays reliable openings, but I don't get the sense that they're a theory maven. Just a vibe I'm getting. I don't think they're going to, try to refute some sharp line if I play it. I think they might be looking for safety, looking to stabilize a little bit more, but remains to be seen. D4, E6 here in this game. Seems to pretty consistently play some combination of Knight F6, E6 against D4. And I'm primarily a D4 player on move 1. I also play a lot of Knight F3 and the occasional English, I should mention. How about this? This was a London system. Just a game of chess. Just a chess position in this one. Yeah, I'd like to have some sort of flavor to work with. But it can be hard against Knight F6, E6. Because that is so reliable. Anti-Nimzo Indian. Yeah, so a lot of times white plays Knight F3 on move 3 if they want to purely avoid the Nimzo Indian. Looks like this player ducks into the QGD, though. Yeah, I think I'm going to click into the database now and try to get a more granular look with this particular player. So Foznaz 83 as black. Let's see exactly how consistent or not they are in the opening. So against D4, yeah, it looks like they pretty consistently play Knight F6 or E6. Very rarely do they do other things. We can pretty much discount this. All these other moves are such a small sample size. So C4, E6. And if Knight F3, yeah, D5 is mostly played. And if Knight C3, is it always Bishop B4? Pretty much. Some transpositions into Queen's Gambit declined. But yeah, more than likely Bishop B4. Now, I've done a lot of stuff against the Nimzo Indian, as this player has also faced. And there's not any one system that really grabs me against the Nimzo Indian, I gotta say. So I recommend Queen C2 in my D4 course on Chessable. Just defending the knight on C3, making sure black can't double the pawns. But it's a very well-known line. If black is prepared against that, they have multiple decent ways to play, as it looks like this player has experimented with. So I don't think I would go for a Queen C2 line if I allowed the Nimzo. Queen B3 is kind of interesting, just to try to force things a little more. I believe C5 is the best move here. But it's interesting that there's only one game that my opponent has played from this position way back in 2019. Yeah, so if C5 takes, I know there's something like this, and black can delay the attack on the c pawn. I think black also plays knight a6, if I'm not mistaken, in this position. Yeah, knight c6, knight a6, according to the Masters database. So queen b3, this is a surprise weapon. I don't think I've played much, if at all, in the database. But maybe I could use this if I want to try to get black to take on c3. Because if black takes on c3 without you having to first play queen c2 and then usually a3, that should be a bit of a victory for white. A very minor victory. It looks like they have some games with this. Yeah, they're from a while ago. But bishop g5, h6. Yeah, so if take... What happens if take's here, trying to go for the c7 pawn? Can we do that? Knight c6 to defend the bishop, and then e3. Maybe black has some compensation here, but it looks like an extra pawn to me. Bishop d7, knight f3. Gotta watch knight b4, but I suppose there's queen c3 against that. Wow, even queen takes b7 in this case. So what? Rook c8, then queen takes b7, rook b8, queen a6. So if knight b4, you can go queen... not queen e2, queen takes f6. Uh-huh. And then you can address the threat of knight c2 next move. Okay. Could I also just play bishop h4 if I get here? Maybe there's some continuation like this, where black can fork the queen and the bishop. But I don't know. This is putting into my head maybe queen b3, a little bit of a surprise in the Nimzo Indian itself, playing a move that they wouldn't expect. Right on move 4, after bishop b4 hits the board. That's an option. Because if a5, a3, right? And then if take, there's a more recent game, a couple more recent games actually, 3 of them, where my opponent faced this. Maybe they've looked this lineup since, but yeah, we could get something like this. And this is very much like one of the standard queen c2 lines, except a3 and a5 have been inserted. So it's a little bit different. Tiny bit different. Queen f3, that's interesting. Hit the rook with the idea knight c6, castles long. Knight c6, castles long. And then you try to go e4, huh? What if bishop b7? Yeah, you go e4. And if h6... it crossed my mind, can I play h4 here and go for some fishing pole idea? But bishop h4... Wow, this looks dangerous for black to play on site. I think if d6, you can go e5 anyways. Yeah. If takes, this opens up the attack on the queen. Black doesn't have time to do anything. There's many different ideas here. Okay, queen b3. Queen b3. I mean, if I could get this position, a little bit of a twist on a normal line. Like I've said, a3, a5 have been inserted. Maybe that's enough to get my opponent thinking in the opening and make me feel pretty good going into the middle game in this one. So if castles bishop g5, that makes sense. b6. I like this queen f3 move. No Masters games. There's probably Lee chess games. Yeah, there are. And then castles queenside. Wow. Is this a new position? No games found. That's pretty rare in a position before move 10 in a mainline opening in the Lee chess database. Queen f3. Wow. Knight c6, castles. Yeah, it looks dangerous on site. I wouldn't want to stumble into this as black. e4, the pressure on f6. What if d5? d5 makes sense. Could trade on f6. And then, yeah, just try to play this position, I suppose. Trade everything, play e3, knight e2, knight f4. This looks nice. At minimum. Could also keep the tension, e3. Looks like the engine's recommending taking on f6, though, at some point. By the way, I might want to upgrade my Stockfish, the Stockfish 17, pretty soon, because that is available. Okay, So queen b3, and then if a5, we can go a3. I did see that they play bishop e7 sometimes, but I mean, I can't imagine this is good for black. e4. If white can achieve e4, get all 3 pawns side by side, I think we're liking this. d5, but doesn't that lose a pawn? Take e5. Looks like this was a blitz game, but it does appear that black is just losing a pawn if we go down that road. Knight takes d5 or queen takes d5. Okay. And so if this, they do have some games with takes d5, but they're to bishop g5. I think I looked at this. And if h6 take, if knight e4, by the way, so you have to always calculate knight e4 in a situation like this, but usually white can scoop the pawn on c7. That's a key factor. I guess black could take on c4 maybe. Yeah, I mean, I could play this. Knight f3. White has the bishop pair. I think I'm going to go for this. I don't even know if I want to look at other stuff. Because again, this player looks solid. I'd rather surprise them in a QGD, I think, or Nimzo Indian, than a QGD. Queen's Gambit declined. Queen e7. Queen e7, you can also insert a3. This looks somewhat similar. Yeah, d6. So if here, bishop g5, maybe knight e4 is a move. Although it looks like white can try to get some edge out of the bishop pair here. Yeah, against a player like this, if I could get the bishop pair, time advantage, fingers crossed on that one, and a surprise in the opening, I think I'm pretty happy. Just looking at some alternative ways of playing too. Let's just say some standard looking moves like this. I don't know, knight c6 maybe. e3, e5. Something like this looks utterly standard as well. I wouldn't mind playing this too. This is not a situation where we're going to refute black's setup if we get something like this. But just trying to have some ideas fresh in mind. Because they might go for something a little conservative. Queen e7 makes a lot of sense. a3 takes. b6. Something like this. Could go f3, e4. Sometimes I just play e3. There's a maneuver where you can try to send the knight to c3 in this line too. Engine doesn't say it's anything, but I could play something like this. What if d5? Take. And there's still some issues sometimes with the pawn on c7. Let's look at that c5 line again, because that is critical. Is that the most popular line? Yeah, c5 is the most popular move in the Masters database by a mile, actually. 82% of the market share, if you will, at this juncture. So c5, take. And then if knight c6, yeah, I know a3 kind of forcing things. Actually not played too often here, but often a reaction to what black's doing. But okay, knight f3, and then knight e4. Okay, yeah, that's a little sharper. Knight e4, bishop d2, break the pin, take, then take on c5, probably e3, and the engine's showing total equality here. e6. Yeah, white doesn't have the bishop pair, but the position's stable. I could play this. Rook fd1. Knight a5. Queen a4. Guard or attack this pawn. Bishop c6. Queen c2. Maybe there's some knight d5 ideas. Queen c7. Rook c1. Yeah. It's an unusual piece placement. It's kind of a hedgehog style position. Both sides have some weird knights. Black does have the bishop pair. Definitely no edge there for white. But I think good to know about something like that. So that's if knight f3, knight e4. I just think that's unlikely if my opponent's not expecting queen b3. I don't think they're going to want to do anything sharp. But yeah, I'll probably just default to development against that. Just go from there. What if castles? Probably same thing. E3. Also G3. Yeah, I can play these positions on site. That is workable. And this is a lot of what you're doing when you have limited time to prepare. Even if you have a lot of time to prepare, you got to make compromises. You have to recognize that the vast majority of the time, your prep is not going to hit exactly. So you got to be thinking of where are natural deviations for your opponent, especially with them knowing that you're preparing certain lines. Try to put yourself in their shoes. So that's why I'm taking a broad approach here and looking at a bunch of different things that my opponent could do. So c5 take. What about knight a6? Knight a6, often white does play a3. And usually bishop takes c5 is played. Yeah, I know there's a line like this, isn't there? b4. This looks very familiar. Queen b2, queen d4. This could be a potentially sharp, maybe, dare I say, dangerous situation to be in without prep. For me, that is. Specifically this line. But again, I think it's unlikely that my opponent goes for something like this, just based on what I see with their games and the type of player they appear to be. But I'm also trying to build in some backup options, like I'm talking about. Stuff like this. Not very inspiring, but build in some safety valves if I need them. So a3 is critical here. And if takes, knight takes c5, b4 is also critical. Hitting the knight. And it looks like white puts the queen on different squares. Queen b2 often played. I mean, queen d4 does make a lot of sense, I would say, because I would think you'd want to keep the b2 square open for the bishop. But I guess it allows some simplifications. Queen takes d5, bishop b2, take. This, too, is a position I wouldn't mind playing on site. There's a bunch of games here. Doesn't look like white's better, but if I am up, a few minutes when I get there, I think I'd be willing to do that. So, all right, if this position hits, queen d4, queen b2, yeah, I mean, this is somewhat risky. If a line like this happens, I don't want to be just spending gobs of time while my opponent is rushing out the moves. But it could happen. It could go down that way. It is nice knowing that the evaluation is at least good. Some line like this where black actually sacrifices a pawn. And this doesn't look too great for black. Black managed to draw in this game, though. Knight h3, knight f2. Okay. Yeah, so I hope I don't face c5, because if black plays c5 and they play it quickly, that probably indicates that they've looked at this line. They've only played it once. They've only played c5 once in the Lichess database, at least, and it was back in 2019. Like a really long time ago. Oh, yeah, and black could take this pawn right away, but I know white usually goes knight f3, followed by bishop g5. Something like this could very well happen, too, though. There's no guarantee that it won't. But this is kind of my style of position, too. It's like semi-open. White has fluid piece play. Some chances to grind black, I think. So I hope I get a5, a3, bishop takes. There's no tricks with like a4 here, is there? Sometimes the queen can get trapped. How would I get out of this? Like queen c5, and if rook a5, knight b5, huh? Yeah, that's how you get out of it. And if d6, you can flee in this direction, I guess. Rook b1. Okay. So I hope I get this. Queen b3, a5, a3, take, castles, bishop g5, b6, and then this move, queen f3. This would be really nice with the idea of this, castles with e4 coming. Castles to guard the d-pawn with e4 coming. But yeah, I mean, it could easily go down something like this. b6, say bishop b7, send the knight to c3. White's a little bit better in this type of thing. Nothing crazy, though. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. So probably one of my most targeted prep sessions. I just spotted a possibility, thought about a line that I've been tinkering with mentally. And I think I'm going to go for it if we get a Nimzo. So let's see. Doesn't appear like my opponent does much else. I mean, they could play a QGD, but then I get to play this exchange variation if I want. I'm not that worried about that. I have a lot of experience here. Okay, so I prepped for almost 25 minutes. There's 6 minutes till the game. I'm going to go get some iced coffee, bring it up to my my room here, and then we'll get started with the game against Faznaz 83. Okay, and we are off. Good luck to Faznaz 83. Seems like a nice person. We were chatting a little bit before the game in the Slack channel. Okay, let's go ahead and play D4 in this 30 plus 30 game. This is round 7, season 37, Lone Wolf League on Lichess. Okay, and E6 played very quickly on move 1. So not a move I expected. Players who play the French defense do like to play this sometimes because they're offering a transposition. But we're not going to go into that. So let's play C4. I'm going to be keeping an eye on my recording because before we get too deep, I have been having mic problems. You might have noticed it in the last video. I actually ordered a new mic, but I didn't have time to set it up. It just came yesterday, and I didn't have time to mess with it before the game today. So I'm hoping this one doesn't cut out or do anything weird. Okay, let's not blabber too much while we're still in our prep. But yeah, the mic did cut out, I think, once or twice for a not insignificant period in the last Lone Wolf game. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen today. So far, my levels look good. And I did make some tweaks to this mic as well, so it shouldn't be running as hot. The volume might be a little bit lower, but I know you guys can, do your best and adjust that on your end. So thanks for bearing with me. Audio stuff is like my nightmare. I hate dealing with tech-related things. I know you can't escape that, but don't you wish we could just, with technology, just set it and forget it? Set it up one time and just have it work indefinitely. Life doesn't work like that, though, I know. Okay, so I paused for a moment before playing knight c3, but I don't think that pause is going to fake out my opponent or anything. Now they're thinking probably whether to play Nimzo or go Queen's Gambit declined. Doubtful black does anything else. So yeah, they do play Nimzo. And how far do we want to go down the mind games with them? I mean, I don't think too far because this is absolutely expected. And I'm going to play Queen b3 here. So let's go ahead and do it. And we'll see if black starts thinking or if Faznaz plays something pretty quickly. Because I think this move will be a surprise. If I was being more thorough in my prep, I would have actually checked how many times I've played this and how many times that's available in the Lichess database. Black does play c5, so that suggests to me that they've looked at this. So yeah, let's go ahead and take. And we'll see if we get knight c6 or knight a6. Whereupon there's some, potentially sharp lines. Knight c6 played. Okay. So I think we're probably just going to have a quieter game of chess in this one, at least in the opening. Remains to be seen, but that is what I would guess. Let's go ahead and play knight f3. And the line here was if black plays knight e4, you go bishop d2 to further defend c3, because you really don't want black taking on c3 and triple isolating your pawns. In some cases, that's acceptable, like if you get the bishop pair, but as a rule, that's usually not what you want. So yeah, knight e4. I'll play knight d2, bishop d2 rather. And it looks like we're going to get this line where, yeah, I mean, it's equal. We know that from having looked at this 15 minutes ago. So bishop takes c5. Now, e3 was the normal approach, but I am a little bit intrigued by playing g3 because there were some variations where that was possible, but e3 was the normal move. e3 castles, bishop e2, b6, castles, bishop b7, knight de4, some stuff like that. Maybe I'll go for that. I don't know. G3, I got to think about attacks towards F2, which I'm not really keen to burn time making sure that that's okay for me. So yeah, let's play E3. Oh yeah, drink check. So I've got my decaf iced espresso. Already had my caffeinated coffee for the day, so we're going decaf. Still very good though. Little splash of cream. Highly recommended. And then I've got my lemon ginger tea, which I've been pretty much drinking every round. Good for the voice. Highly recommend ginger in particular for tea. If you make tea with fresh ginger, like cut up some ginger and actually make tea with it, really good. This is just, the bag stuff. Sorry to the proper tea making viewers out there, but this is just me microwaving hot water or microwaving water for a minute and then adding a tea bag. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a savage, but when you're playing the Lone Wolf League and you're prepping right before the round and you're recording, you got to go with what works. And then, of course, we've got our water as well. So, simuling the beverages. I'm happy to be playing chess, guys. This has been a busy and somewhat stressful week for me. In part because of the audio situation. It's just very annoying when I'm recording stuff like multiple times per week, especially these long videos. I just want it to be good for you guys. So, I was tracking the delivery of the mic, like wondering if it was going to get here in time. I was fiddling with this mic before the round. At some point, I just had to stop though because I was like, I'm probably not going to get this perfect in time for round 7, and that's okay. But yeah, that's one thing I really love about chess, especially long time control chess. It really does feel like an escape a lot of times where you can disconnect from everything that's going on in your life and just enjoy a game of chess. Even if you lose, hopefully you enjoy just the intellectual process of playing a chess game and trying to learn something from it and enjoy that camaraderie with your opponent. I mentioned this on recent videos and streams, but for me, I would say at this point in my chess career, 90% of the enjoyment that I get in the game is the social aspect of the game. Like, yes, I want to get better as a player, but I played a lot of competitive chess in my life. I've been around the scene for quite a while. I don't think I'm going to be making some monumental leap in my playing strength that overrides all of the other wonderful things about the game that I enjoy. And the social aspects, connecting with you guys, especially connecting with people in person too. I really, really enjoy that. So if I ever, happen to see one of you at a tournament or vice versa, by all means, introduce yourself. Tournament, chess event, wherever. I love connecting with people like that. So it's really a privilege to play these games and share them with you guys. Okay, so Faznaz castles. That is expected. And I think bishop e2 is appropriate here. Let's play it. Now, why wouldn't you put the bishop on d3? Mostly because the bishop's more exposed there. Like, yes, it would attack the f7 point, but you're opening yourself up for knight e5 a little more easily. So, okay, this is all normal. And I believe at this point, knight d to e4 was the move that I looked at. Bishop e7 and then rook f d1. So more than likely, I'm going to go for that. I don't have any big ideas here as of yet. So let's continue playing fast, play moves that I know were played in the Masters database multiple times. So hitting that bishop on c5. I recall there was that game, I think it went bishop e7, rook f d1, knight a5, where white played queen a4. And I very quickly mentioned that the pawn on d7 is attacked there. And I think that's why black played bishop c6 at that point, queen c2. And then queen c7, if I'm not mistaken. Queen to c7. And I commented on how white has a knight on e4. That's a little bit unusual for this structure. But black also has an unusual piece with the knight on a5. And I think queen c7 was not the engine's favorite move. I want to say rook c8 might have been, bringing the rook to the c file. But I know at least that's an acceptable line of play for white. I can see how the knight on e4 is useful later. I like how this clears the d file, and I might have access towards that pawn on d7. So let's just keep up the pace. Those extra few minutes against a good player are going to be valuable at some point. Okay, everything looks good. So bishop e7, very much an expected move here. Yeah. Maybe black could have played knight a5 or something, but this move is absolutely standard. And now let's play rook fd1 as planned. So a little bit of pressure brewing on d7, something that black is going to have to think about. It's a little uncomfortable for the black queen, you can see, because if queen c7, trying to connect the rooks, black always has to think about knight b5, and maybe in some cases, knight d5 as a sacrifice, with the idea being pawn takes d5, hit the knight, and also try to get d6 going. That's probably not going to work in the short term because black has knight a5 in that exact position. But queen c7, knight b5, with the idea of landing a knight on d6, that might be enough to dissuade black from playing queen c7 anytime soon. You know, another nice benefit of just playing long time control chess, and I think about this so much in this day and age, it's really one of the few avenues, at least in my social circle, which includes a lot of chess players, where people are focusing for several hours without looking at their devices. So just completely disconnecting not only from the world, but also your device. Insert Kramnik joke, but there's a lot of value to that in 2025 and into the future, especially for kids. There's all these studies about how kids and adults are just having trouble focusing these days. And let me tell you, if you want to practice your focus and your ability to lock in and produce something of value, think about playing long time control chess. Think about joining a league like the LoneWolf League. Think about playing a tournament, an over the board tournament. It doesn't even have to be that long of games. These are 30 plus 30 games, which over the board would actually be pretty fast. But you guys have seen the videos. These produce a ton of intricacies. I'm analyzing these games. I'm thinking about them for several days after I play them. I'm probably going to go back and watch some of these games after the season is done, try to figure out where I could have improved. That stuff really stays with you, and it can improve a lot of aspects of your life, I think. Your ability to reason, that ability to focus, and be honest with yourself, too. Be objective. It's really a beautiful thing. All right, so I built up a nice little time edge. That's pretty rare in these games. I think in the majority of games, I've been down on the clock after 10 to 15 moves. So we're already inching towards a middle game here. Played very quickly in the opening. Not a whole lot going on yet. I don't have a direct threat or anything, but I'm looking to probably bring my rook to c1 at some point. Maybe double the rooks on the d file and attack this pawn on d7. That could very much be a focal point of what white is doing. And in fact, given that white has given up the bishop pair in this line, that's probably what white is mostly banking on. is attacking this pawn on d7. And thinking about it more, that's probably why black has gone for this knight a5 operation in this type of position, allowing for bishop c6, making way for that bishop to come and reinforce the pawn. But I don't know. I feel like that might give some opportunity for knight d5 tactically somewhere, which my opponent's probably going to have on their radar, but maybe I can drop it in at some point. But aside from that pressure on the d7 pawn, there's not a lot white can point to that would cause you to think that white is better here. A little more space. I've got the pawn on c4. But then again, black has two central pawns on the D and E files, two center pawns against one, and the two bishops. So black has some long-term advantages here, in theory, with the bishop pair and the two central pawns. Central pawn's hard to say if that's a long-term advantage. It's kind of a nice to have in some openings, but sometimes it may not be relevant. But certainly the bishop pair is the imbalance that stands out. I don't know if anyone is streaming this game, but thanks to any of the 45 or 45 or LoneWolf streamers, if they are. I've been lucky to have that so far. I think someone streamed my round in every single round so far, which is cool. I go back and watch their VODs a little bit, and it's cool to see. Also, shout out to my opponent from last round, When Rooks Fly. If you guys didn't check out his 2 videos that he made on our game, he did the same exact thing as me that I've been doing in my rounds. He posted his preparation, and he also posted in a separate video the actual game live, which is not easy, let me tell you. Those of you who haven't ever recorded yourself playing and explaining your thought process, not easy to do that unless you have some practice. And I think When Rooks Fly did a great job of that in that very tense game in round 6. Okay, so my advantage is getting appreciable on the clock at this point, 10 minutes. Still early, and I'm very confident that black is going to, solve any minor dilemmas that they're thinking about here. But if it takes them down to 15 to 10 minutes to do so, and we're still in an equal-ish or maybe tiny bit better position for white, I'm cool with that. And hopefully I can continue playing fast. So yeah, black is still dealing with this issue on d7. It's just hard to move this pawn too. d5 is out of the question, I think, because of takes. I mean, maybe you could play knight a5 there, but d5 is not the type of move you want to be playing with your queen opposite this rook on d1. d6 could be played, but then again, I can attack it later with knight b5. So black does play knight a5. And this is, I think, where white played queen a4 in that one game I was looking at. Queen a4, baiting bishop c6, and then queen back to c2. I do think, even though bishop c6 reinforces the pawn, I do think it's worth enticing that move because it blocks the c file. So I do believe it makes sense for me to go for that. Also, their knight is going to have a harder time becoming relevant. Maybe I play a3, b4 somewhere. So I'm probably going to play queen a4 unless I can find a reason to play queen c2 right away. But I'm not seeing a really compelling one. So let's go ahead and play queen a4. And I wouldn't be surprised if Faznas plays bishop c6 pretty quickly here. I only had a couple legitimate options. I guess queen b5 is a move I could have considered attacking this, but bishop c6, I don't think I really want to send my queen over to the king side. So I didn't get a line that's advantageous to me, but I do know that I'm following a master game. And I got a big time edge as a result, so I'm cool with that. Okay, queen c2. Yeah, and roundabout here is where I was starting to mention the knight d5 stuff in the prep. Because if black puts that queen on c7 in particular, there are some circumstances where knight d5 could work. It doesn't work yet, though. So queen c7, knight d5, black can play bishop takes d5. Not pawn takes d5, but bishop takes. And that opens the c file. White can't take back because they lose the queen. So that's where a move like rook c1 could make sense, start coming into the picture. Maybe I can think about a3, b4, maybe follow up with b5 in some situation too. I do have to watch my c-pawn. That could be on the chopping block. But we'll see. No pun intended. Queen c7, rook c1. I think it's a good move. Rook c1. Maybe black goes queen b7 somewhere. Can always play bishop f1 if I need to defend the pawn on g2. I have to be aware that at some stage black could think about f5. I don't know if that's a move I've mentioned so far, but they could lash out with the f pawn to kick the knight and also just try to jumpstart some play on the king side. So I think for now, I'm going to be jumping into d6 if black does that. But we're going to continue having that on our radar. In a way, this resembles a hedgehog formation for black. It's like a semi-hedgehog because they're not putting the pawn on d6, at least right away. But they do have, albeit less space, a pretty reliable setup. They're kind of crouching behind that setup on the back few ranks. This knight on a5 aside, they're sort of sitting back, content in the fact that if I throw myself at black, I start trying to move pieces to the 5th rank, let's say, across this demarcation line, it's probably going to backfire. The position is just too closed. We got 16 viewers, 17 viewers on this game. Shout out to everyone. I haven't decided if I'll join an upcoming season of either the Lone Wolf League or the 45 plus 45. We still got a few rounds to go in this one, but I've really been enjoying it. It is a pretty big time commitment, so I probably wouldn't join the next season, which is season 38. I'd probably take at least one season off, but it's a definite possibility. And knight b7, speaking of definite possibilities, knight d5 instantly jumps out at me here because black just took away their escape route for the bishop to b7. So I could drop this move in. I wonder how big of an impact it has, though. So if pawn takes, I like that. But maybe black's just going to ignore it and play f5. And give me the dark square bishop, but then say, all right, you got to move your knight. What gives? What's the big deal? And that's probably true. I mean, knight d5, it looks weird to just let that knight sit there. But I'm really only threatening to take the bishop. So if black starts kicking my knight, maybe I could go knight c3. I don't know. Maybe I could make that little idea persist. f5 could be a slightly weakening move sooner or later. So knight d5, f5, knight c3. I am holding up f4, so that's nice. But I am only attacking with my pieces as well. I don't really have a lot of pawn play going on here. It might be nice to include my pawns. a3, b4, or something like that. But black might work up to f5 anyways in a case like that. So I think I have to assume on the next move that black may play f5. Black may go ahead and do this. Knight d5, f5. Not really concerned about any other move. Maybe black could play rook c8 instead of f5. It's possible. Yeah, I think I'm moving away from knight d5. I just don't see it having quite the impact yet that I would be looking for. Bishop f3 comes to mind, so that on f5, I can retreat the knight and offer an exchange for this light square bishop. Deprive black of the bishop pair. That might be nice. Is knight b5 worth considering? It's interesting. Not quite sure how much it achieves, but it's interesting. Discourages rook c8 because then there's knight takes a7. And if f5, maybe I play either knight d6 or bring the other knight to c3. Knight b5. Okay, so there is bishop takes on b5, of course, but then c takes. Sort of strange, but that pawn kind of cramps black a little bit. d5, though, maybe it's not much. d5, knight c3. I can't use the c6 square so easily. So yeah, I'm thinking of a bunch of moves here. Knight d5, knight b5, bishop f3, a3, rook c1. Those moves also cross my mind. The thing with getting one of black's bishops, though, is I think I'd rather get the light square bishop than the dark square bishop if I could trade for one. Because I just don't see knight d5, knight takes e7 having a whole lot of an effect. Because now I'm thinking knight d5, maybe black will just play rook c8 to threaten bishop takes d5, or pawn takes d5 for that matter. Knight d5, rook c8. I probably got to take on e7 there. Queen takes e7, and what have I really achieved? Doesn't look like much. So maybe I should play something like knight f3 and just go from there. But knight f3, knight c5, knight takes c5, bishop takes f3. How do I feel about that? Could calculate knight takes e6. I'm not sure it works, though, because bishop takes d1. So bishop f3, let's say either rook c8 or f5. Let's say rook c8. Rook c8 looks logical. Probably got to play something like b3 at that point, which looks a little slow. A little bit slower than I would prefer. But when that rook lands on c8, I might want to take some care about my c4 pawn, especially with my bishop on f3. So I don't know, bishop f3, it'd be an easy move to play, but it looks a little limp. But I'm also checking my ambitions here because I just don't think I'm going to have anything groundbreaking right away. Knight b7 looks very reasonable. I mean, knight b5, bishop takes, pawn takes. Be nice to find something there that causes problems, but I'm not seeing a whole lot. My knights are stepping on each other's toes a little bit, so that's why I'm thinking of ways I can reroute or just present some problems. Knight b5, bishop takes, pawn takes, d5. That's what I didn't like, d5 at the end. It just looks like I have doubled pawns there, and black is chilling. So I think I got to rule out knight b5. Knight d5 I wasn't liking because of rook c8 at the end of the day. And I just feel like I'm helping black coordinate. So I could pass. I could play b3, just do something useful. Although that rules out the a3, b4 plan in some ways. Bishop f3. Rook c1. Rook c1, rook c8, though. Could go something like rook c1, rook c8, queen back to b1. Just hide the queen. That's still f5, though. F5 is probably coming eventually. I'm leaning towards bishop f3 here without getting too far down the rabbit hole on my clock. I think I just have to be practical. Yeah, let's go bishop f3. I want to keep this time edge several minutes if I can. My light square bishop isn't an amazing piece. So if I could engineer some trade of light square bishop for light square bishop, like I said, that's the bishop I would prefer to get, actually. It's defending that pawn on d7. The dark square bishop would be nice to get if I could, for example, install my other knight on d6, but that just isn't reasonable with black having the knight on b7. So I probably spent, 7 minutes there just to play a fairly tame move. But I do feel like I'm assessing the position correctly. I don't think I had anything really spectacular there. Just had to play a reasonable move. And black may think twice about f5 if they have to exchange light square bishops after that. Because I think if you play f5, you would like to do so as a prelude to maybe generating some kingside attack. And if I immediately play knight d2 and offer a swap for that bishop on c6, I think that's going to keep black's ambitions in check. Maybe they'll go ahead and play f4, but that looks loosening. And I wouldn't mind to see that. So f5, knight d2, f4. Yeah, I mean, I think it's unlikely, but bishop takes c6, d takes c6. Let's say knight back to f3, or knight 2 f3, hitting the queen. Queen c7. e6 is kind of loose. Knight d4 is maybe a possibility there. The knight on b7 looks a little weird. If knight c5, I still have b4. So I doubt Faznaz is going to want to go down that road. Maybe they'll play f5, but I don't think they're going to play f4 as a follow-up. An interesting thing here, guys. Actually, I'm just noticing. Am I threatening knight f6? Knight f6 takes bishop takes c6? I think I am. That hits the knight and the pawn on d7. I'm a little sleepy today, so that didn't cross my mind whatsoever, but that probably is a reason for black to play rook c8 here and have the rook defend the bishop. Black plays queen c7, which is also definitely legitimate. Get the queen off that file. And now is it time for rook c1? Looking for knight d5, potentially. Remember, knight d5 right away, that might work well if they take with the pawn, because then I pin black. But it doesn't work because they can take with the bishop. So yeah, I think rook c1 may be good here. Very natural move, too. Nothing with knight b5 doing. It also fails. Black's covering the g5 square, so I can't go threaten checkmate or anything. Let's go rook c1. Normal. Natural chess. Get the final piece in the game. Black could put a rook on c8. That would be the most natural thing in reply, I think. Because that layers on another piece on the c file, right? So if rook a c8, knight d5 is still not working because a bishop takes d5. And after that series of trades, I lose a rook. So that would remain out of the question. But let's say rook a c8, I might move my queen. Let's say queen b1 or queen e2. And then knight d5, I think, is back on the menu. So yeah, rook c8 played. Makes sense. Queen e2 does seem attractive because it does help reinforce my bishop. If I go queen b1, there might be some question if a trade occurs on f3, whether black can take my pawn on c4. So it might be nice to play queen e2 in this position. Then again, queen e2, I'm not threatening knight d5, am I? Because again, bishop takes. And if pawn takes, black can play queen takes c1 at the end. So maybe a little give and take there. Knight b5 is another thing I might want to threaten. But I don't see that panning out anytime soon either. Still, though, I think queen e2 makes a lot of sense. I might go for that here. It's just a good cohesive move. Remove my queen from the file. Any chance that black takes on e4 and then plays a knight takes e4 d5? It's kind of wild to do that, but same concept would apply. C takes d5, queen takes c1. Nah, I don't think they're going to do that. So queen e2, am I really considering any other moves? And I could throw in maybe b3, but b3, there's always moves like bishop a3 in reply. I'm not sure I want to play b3 yet. Not sure I want to commit to that. So I think queen e2 might be the play. Let's do it. Remove the queen from the file. The game still looks level. I don't think I have a hint of an advantage. Just looks even. Maybe the engine will even slightly like black in the bishop pair. But I think there's a pretty decent chance that a pair of bishops will come off the board. A trade of the light square bishops. So doesn't seem like black is working with a whole lot. Yeah, and I'm choosing queen e2 over queen d2 because I want to reinforce this bishop on f3. I think I was explaining, but if black plays f5, it's nice that on knight d2, bishop takes f3, I can take with my queen if I want and keep this pawn on c4 defended. Okay, queen to b8. So again, I'm looking at this knight d5 move. Knight d5. Pawn takes d5. Pawn takes d5. And I'm playing for that light square bishop. There is bishop a4 at that point. However, I do have b3 in reply. b3. And I think I'm bound to win the bishop at that stage. So if there's ever a moment to play knight d5, it might be now. Maybe I could try to wait a move, but knight d5, pawn takes d5, pawn takes d5. Is there bishop takes d5? I don't think so, because I can throw in rook takes c8. And I'm probably going to be slightly better there. Rook takes c8, rook takes c8, rook takes d5. Rook c1 check, rook d1. That's the type of position that might be drawish in theory. Rook takes d1, queen takes d1, but with black having that weak pawn on d7, I'm the only one who can realistically win there. It actually looks pretty pleasant the more I look at that. So knight d5. Now, could black ignore it and play bishop d8? They probably could. Knight d5, bishop d8. But then I have knight b4 at minimum. Yeah, knight b4. Hit the bishop, maybe even knight a6 type stuff comes to mind. Ooh, okay, so knight d5. I'm getting mildly excited, even though I don't think this is probably that much still. But it's just such an attractive move to play with this pawn on c4. So knight d5, pawn takes d5, pawn takes d5. I don't think anything with f5 is ever going to mess with me, because then I can play knight c3, and black doesn't even have the a4 square. So knight d5, pawn takes d5, pawn takes d5. Just looked at bishop takes d5. I don't think I have much to fear after rook takes c8. They get that one back rank check, but I've got that covered easily. And then I should just be better structurally. So we get the trade, bishop a4 happens, and then I want to play b3. I want to go pawn b3. Because even though black can take the pawn, we have equal material at that point. And I gotta believe I'm still somehow a little bit better because black's pawns are fractured. I get rid of that light square bishop, which just helps a ton. My light square bishop is a little blunted at that point, but I'd really like to swap for this piece if I could. So as of now, this is a big front runner, knight d5. I just don't see a lot of complications. There's stuff like at the end of that line with the trades. Rook takes c1, rook takes c1, bishop a3, but I always just sidestep. And that bishop remains trapped. f5, f5 lashing out never seems to do much. Always have b5 covered. So I know black has been looking at knight d5, but I wonder if they have something up their sleeve against it here. And again, it's nice that on bishop d8, if black really doesn't want to take that knight, I think I always have knight b4 if I just want to play that right away. I might be able to keep the knight on d5 longer, but I have knight b4 if I want it. I think I'm going to go for it. And I'm not at all worried about a line like bishop takes d5, c takes d5, rook takes c1, rook takes c1, pawn takes d5. Because then knight to c3, the d pawn is a goner. I got to be somewhat better there. Maybe quite a bit better. So I think I'm almost ready to pull the trigger on this. Knight d5. The bishop a4 move b3 response is key. I'm just so solid otherwise. Everything's compact. Let's go for it. Let's do it. And I'm trying to keep a bit of a time edge. But let's play it. And I maybe could have explained the in-between move sequence better, but pawn takes d5, pawn takes d5, bishop takes d5, rook takes c8. If bishop takes e4, I have rook takes f8 with check. And then however black responds, I take the bishop next move. I'm up in exchange. I have a bishop and a rook against two minor pieces. So always got to look at those type of things, the bang-bang, asymmetric type of exchanges. But that doesn't appear to work for black. So, I mean, maybe black could play something like rook e8 to defend the bishop, but this still feels like an achievement. And again, I can think at that point about keeping this knight on d5 a little longer. If I maybe want to play b3, I don't have to take that bishop quite yet. And that may cost black time making that determination. to do something like that. And I think I feel better about playing knight d5 with the bishop undefended than in those earlier lines where the queen was always defending the bishop from d8. With the queen over on b8, it feels like this queen may just end up being out of the game in a lot of these sequences. So I think it gives me more of a license to go after this bishop right away with the black queen over here. I could probably pre-move a capture on d5. Because either way black takes, pawn or bishop, I'm going to be taking. So let's do it. Hopefully black just tanks now for, 5, 6, 7 minutes. That'd be great. All right, recording still looks good. I think I've had this mic for about 5 years now. So probably time to put it out to pasture. It is a good mic, don't get me wrong, but they also can be defective and just become less effective over time. So black definitely not responding instantly. That's a good sign. I wonder if knight d5 caught them off guard. Because when you play queen b8, you're playing queen b8 because you think you're taking the sting out of knight d5. But I wonder if black just missed that the bishop is actually still trapped at the end of the day if they take it with the pawn. I actually think if I were playing black here, I think I'd play rook e8, rook f to e8. It's not very glamorous, but that's probably the best reaction, especially on a practical level. If you were surprised by knight d5, just defend the bishop, ask white, what do you got? How are you going to hurt me from here? And in truth, I probably don't have that much, but it is nice that I can get rid of the bishop pair if I want. I can take their bishop. I don't have to, though. I could play that b3 move I was mentioning. That might be a good one. What else? Maybe... Now, b3, maybe there's bishop a3. But I'm just wondering if I could play knight f6 somewhere if the rook comes to e8 and the bishop leaves the h4 d8 diagonal. Maybe knight f6 could drop at some point. Okay, let's pre-move this again. Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say black will play rook e8. I think black's going to play it. Because if you take the knight, it just doesn't seem like the position's opening up in the way that you would like if you're playing black here. So therefore, I'm investing my mental energy right now thinking about rook e8, rook f to e8, that is, and what I'm going to do against that. The b3 move might be the way. That might be the thing to do. But then what do I do against bishop a3? Maybe just rook b1? Black still is trapped if they take my knight. They could try to seek exchanges. So let's say rook f e8, b3, knight c5. Attack my knight on e4. But then maybe I get a chance for knight takes e7, rook takes e7, knight d6, potentially. Wedge my knight in on that d6 square. They might pop the queen out to e5 somewhere too. That's not out of the question. But that could leave d7 and the 7th rank in general a little bit weak for black. But let's say rook fe8, b3, queen e5, for example. Knight takes e7, rook takes e7. Rook d4, maybe. It's probably a little bit better for me, but nothing much. I think at least half my advantage right now is the clock. This 10, 11-minute lead. So I wanna build on that. Black does take. Wow. Okay. And they took with the bishop too. So we're getting a pure exchange of the minor pieces, and that's that bishop that I wanted. I'm happy about that because it's not like I'm even winning anything here right away. But this pawn on d5 is just such a bear for black to deal with. Now my queen might have access to a6. That just does not look too fun to deal with. I think my light square bishop has a better chance of being effective compared to black's bishop. Yeah, I'm surprised. So my read on rook fe8 was wrong. Black does not play that. But I'm pleasantly surprised. Like, I don't think I would have done that as black, that's for sure. I'll be even more pleasantly surprised if black plays pawn takes d5. But I think there's very little chance of that happening. Because on knight c3, it's way too easy for me to win the pawn back with a big advantage. Land that knight on d5. Even in some opposite color bishop scenarios, let's say it gets down to queen, light square bishop, and 1 or 2 rooks against queen, dark square bishop, and 1 or 2 rooks. Probably white's going to be better if black ever plays e takes d5. Because my bishop, if it lands on d5, will have scope in both directions. Black will have weak pawns. It's hard to find weaknesses in my structure. Yeah, f5 is not really a concern here. Maybe there's some takes. Okay. Well, take, obviously. Is black going to go rook c8 and just try to swap? Probably. Rook c8. I was thinking rook d1 against that move. Actually give black the c file, but then taking on e6 starts to look kind of attractive for me. Maybe d6 somewhere too. Could they be trying to solve their problems actively? Rook c8, rook d1, queen e5, something like that. Idea d takes e6, d takes e6. And I can't go rook d7, I suppose, because black has rook c1. And we'll see. Rook c8, though, would be consistent, I think, given the way black has played now. But I want to keep some tension. If I can keep some tension in the position, I'm happy. Yeah, rook c8. And I'm thinking rook d1, because not only does it protect the back rank, but if this queen starts straying, queen a6, now that I look at it, looks really good in a lot of circumstances. I think if I just purely swap, that shouldn't be as challenging, because Queen c1 is kind of a threat. I probably have to take time out to play g3 or something there. Not sure that's exactly what I want. Rook d1, I can keep the pressure on. I can later play g3 and get rid of the back rank issues. I mean, maybe rook d1, knight c5, though. And black just says, how are you going to actually hurt me? Knight c3. Bishop f6, perhaps. I don't know, knight d4. Maybe knight a4. Seems a little simplistic how black is playing, but perhaps this is just okay. Rook d1, knight c5. Because then if I take e6, black can just take with the d pawn. I think that's always the thing. D takes e6. And I've got the d file, but kind of like black with the c file. I feel like I'm not doing much with it. I think rook d1, knight c5, d6 would be the thing I'd like to do in theory. But then bishop f8. Bishop f8. Yeah, that just doesn't seem like I'm creating too many issues. So I'm looking at rook takes c8 again. I still have a bias towards rook d1, but I'm looking at rook takes c8, queen takes c8, and that g3 move. Because the check on c1 doesn't bother me. But always I think black has this knight c5 move. But maybe trading rooks isn't so bad, because black still is a little loose on the queen side. And if I could ever exploit that, that would be phenomenal. But it seems like rook takes c8, the fact that I have to take a timeout for g3 gives black time to play this knight c5 move and almost solve all their issues. Just feels like I'm lacking a little something here. So rook d1, knight c5. If I take on e6, d takes e6 simply. There just doesn't look to be much there. Probably got to get rid of the back rank threat somewhere. So I think on rook d1, knight c5, I'm looking at knight c3. But what then? Maybe bishop f6? Bishop f6, knight b5, a6, knight d4 maybe? There's also knight b5, knight a4 I think I mentioned. Could be annoying. Another candidate move might be to defend my rook. So queen d1, let's say. And the idea there would be if we get a trade, at least black can't play their queen to the c file so easily. Still not sure I buy it, though. Knight c5. This knight c5 move always calms the position down, it seems. At least with rook d1, I may make black play knight c5 with their rook still on c8. There's some appeal to that. Rook d1, knight c5, knight c3, bishop f6. Do I really care about bishop takes c3 as a threat? Probably I do. Probably I do. Ah, here's an idea. This reminds me of my game from a few games ago, a couple games ago. So rook d1, knight c5, knight c3, bishop f6, let's say. And then take on e6, d takes e6, knight b5, with the idea of using this c6 square. But the issue with knight b5 was knight a4, right? So maybe I have to wait on that. Rook d1, knight c5, knight c3, bishop f6. D takes, D takes. I might have to wait on the D takes exchange. Maybe I play g3, but that gives black time to take and play knight a4. Yeah, so if I play rook d1, I want to have something against knight c5. I think I pretty much have to. I mean, could I take? Then we're getting into pure opposite color bishop territory where I'm just not convinced I really have anything there. So I think knight c3 would be the key at that point. But bishop f6. Threatening to take. Threatening to take my knight. Ah, so what was I saying? D takes, knight b5, and the idea of knight a4, then knight d4. Yeah, but they can always just take. Bishop takes d4. If I had g3 in, I might have a little something in those types of positions, but that's not the case. Yeah, this is a key moment. Rook b1 looks really sophisticated. Not convinced by that move. So rook d1, knight c5. Could I do something funky like knight c4 at that point? Doesn't look right. Doesn't look like what I should be doing. I think I honestly got to take. Starting to feel like I got to take the knight. But nah, it's just too hard to make any trouble because on d takes, black's always taking with the d pawn in those situations. So rook d1, knight c5, knight c3, bishop f6. Yeah, just not much doing. Working with too slim a margin. So rook takes c8, queen takes c8, g3. Just knight c5. But that might be the best we're getting. Knight c5, knight c3, bishop f6, queen c4. And if bishop takes, queen takes, at least I'm pinning black a little bit. That might be the best I'm getting. Rook takes c8, queen takes c8, push the g pawn, probably g3. Get pawns on same color bishop as black's bishop. At least in that line, I could see black having some issues with the queen a6 thing. I think if I play this rook d1, knight c5 move, there's just not a good opportunity to hurt them. So take, g3, knight c5, queen c4. It's queen a6, though. Kills a lot of fun. Maybe I go queen c2 instead of queen c4. Threatening b4. Still, there's queen a6. b4. All right, well, make up my mind soon. Got to decide soon. Yeah, I was skeptical of what black's doing, but they might just be solving their issues kind of compactly here. I thought I would have something with rook d1, but this knight c5 move I can't crack. And then knight c3, bishop f6. It just develops very concretely. Maybe I go queen c4 at that point. Rook d1, knight c5, knight c3, bishop f6, then queen c4. Feels kind of like I'm grasping at straws, but if I could get to even a bishop versus knight, I would like that. My bishop versus black's knight. So queen c4, what then? Maybe a6? Try to work up to b5. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like I'm working with much there. Knight c3 right away. Not convinced. Queen d1 was another option. Queen d1, rook takes c8, queen takes c8, knight c5, knight c3. Tough to believe that that's much. If I could get b4 in, though, maybe. Queen d1. Queen d1, knight c5, knight c3. At least with queen d1, I keep my knight defended on c3 at the end. Passive, though. Little bit passive. I think I got to go queen d1 to keep any sort of tension. I'm going to do it. Hard move to play psychologically because I want to do something forward and try to use this initiative that I seemingly had, but I just wasn't seeing anything. I think knight c5 just always kills my momentum. It's a really nice defensive idea. Even though it's an obvious move, it's like the timing of this, how this goes down. Like in the event of a trade, the fact that I have to take a timeout and defend my back rank, those are the factors that are causing issues. So, yeah, this feels really like I'm agreeing to, chop the pot if this were a poker hand, agreeing to split the pot. But I think it might be one of my better chances at least. Downside is I gave away all my time advantage practically. Little bit of an edge still, 2 minutes, but that was a big think. That was instructive though, because most of that think was talking myself out of playing rook d1. So I don't know. I'll be curious what the eval is there. But rook d1, knight c5, it just wasn't seeing anything. It seems like a trade of a minor piece happens too easily there. So at least this way I'm thinking, okay, if black initiates the trade, I get the c file. And if knight c5, at least I can play knight c3 and then maybe b4. Still, there's probably not much there, but it's the defense of the piece on c3 and trying to work up to b4 is what I'm hoping gives me a little something to work with. Still not worried about this takes, by the way. Knight c3. I guess black could play d4 there, but I wouldn't mind taking and getting a pawn on d4 at this point. In principle, I don't think black really wants to touch these pawns yet. So we get the trade. I do still have a time edge, even though I spent a lot of time there. 3 minutes? Okay. Black's queen's a little passive. Queen e5 allows queen c8 check. So black's not going to do that. they'll probably play knight c5, but maybe they'll play knight d6. Not sure I would consider too many other moves, like e5, f5 somehow don't quite look right. Maybe you could make a case for e5. Yeah, knight c5 played. So here's where I was thinking knight c3. Just as a way of keeping some tension in the position. And trying to work up to b4. Although now I see b4, knight d3, and I lose this pawn. So maybe working up to b4 even takes some time. But I think knight c3 nonetheless is the thing to do. Maybe queen d2 and then eventually b4. Even if black commits to a5 to stop b4, that creates another potential weakness. At least a little something. So knight c3, bishop f6 probably. And then what, queen d2 or queen c2 maybe? I could go queen e5, I guess. Well, let's play it. I gotta do it. And g6 right away. Okay, so black probably sees that b4 can be met by knight d3. That's probably the case. So do I play queen c2? It just feels like such baby steps to work up to b4, but that might be what I'm looking at this point. Queen c2. Wouldn't be a bad idea for me to play g3 as well. But I think if I'm going to have anything, it's going to be connected to b4 at this point. Also, bishop e2. I lose control of the c4 square, but bishop e2 could be a thing. So I think queen c2 or maybe g3. Any potential with this take and knight b5 idea? Just doesn't seem like I'm working with much on the open board. It's a maneuver for a square. Take knight b5. Try to go knight d4, but bishop f6 just seems too easy for black. And b4, knight d3 definitely doesn't work, I don't think. Queen d2, knight takes b4, d6 doesn't matter. I don't think I can get cute with a3 there or anything. I could play a3 now, by the way. But I don't know. Well, maybe a3. I was a little hesitant to give up control of the b3 square, but maybe that doesn't matter so much. Could matter in the case of a3, bishop f6, b4, knight b3. Queen c2, queen c7. Okay, let's go queen c2. Not so glamorous, but has to be done as far as I can tell if I want to get b4 in. There's still a long ways to go here, even though there's been some trades. We're going to be getting into time pressure. I feel like I still have a slight edge. I know you guys are probably getting your pillows out at this point, thinking, oh, this game's just a snooze fest, but I've definitely grinded out wins from more equal positions than this. I've also lost positions like this as the allegedly superior side, so, there's always a risk. So yeah, I'm hoping to kick this knight. I mean, I know black can pivot the knight. Okay, a5. At least I induced what appears to be a little bit of a weakness to me. And now maybe I can target that b pawn in some universe. So do I play queen e2 and try to stop b5? I could also play g3 maybe, but queen Queen e2 seems like a nice move. Because also now with knight b5 in the future, that could be handy too. Bishop e2. Bishop e2, though, I still look a little cramped. I think I have to try to get some traction with my queen. So queen e2, maybe bishop f6 is what black will do. But then knight b5, queen e5, knight d4, perhaps. Okay. Let's play queen e2. Trying to control the b5 square. Just prevent any notion of pawn to b5. So the question is on bishop f6, do I jump the knight in or leave the knight there? I don't think I want to allow the bishop takes c3 trade because black's knight is quite stable on c5. Maybe if I could take with the queen, I would allow it. So bishop f6, queen c4 comes to mind. Even that I'm not so sure about, though. I think I'd like to keep a little more tension than that if I could, but my aspirations at this point are pretty limited, I believe. Yeah, queen c4. Take e5 maybe. Then I could retreat my bishop. Maybe work up to b4 again in some universe. Queen c4, take on c3, queen takes c3, e5, bishop e2. There's some squeezing potential there as long as I stop b5. Might be about the best I'm going to do. Queen c4, bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, e5, bishop e2, d6, queen back to c4. Some slight squeezing potential because my queen could wiggle in there. Probably a draw, but might have to go for it. Just everything else looks a little too easy for black. So, okay, let's try queen c4. So I went queen d1, queen takes c1, queen c2, queen e2, queen c4. Seems very extra, as the kids say. I could see how bishop takes c3 is attractive for black here because it does further simplify the position. And if you think you can keep this knight on c5, it makes a lot of sense. You know, there's still this d takes e6 move I can throw in. I'm not doing that because I just think d takes e6 instantly clarifies to a nearly symmetric pawn structure. This still seems a little harder to play as black, though, compared to me. It's very slight, but that's how it seems. Queen d6. Okay, so if I play g3 at this moment, and black takes d5, queen d4, I'm going to win the pawn back. And I should have a small edge there. Tiny, tiny edge. So is now the time to throw in g3? It might be. And if I do, what if black takes with the pawn on d5? Nah, I don't think I can worry about that. Bishop takes d5. That's probably also equal somehow, but think if anyone's better, it might be me. Knight b5, just queen e5. So I think it's a good time to play g3. Let's do it. Get rid of back rank problems. And now maybe I could work up to a3, b4. If black ever puts the king on g7 and then wants to play bishop takes c3, that'll come with check for me. Now remember, my opponent's a good blitz and bullet player too, so it's not like both of us getting below 5 minutes is advantageous to me. I still have this feeling like this position is just a little harder to play as black, even though I'm the one who's been spending a lot of time the last several moves. I know this isn't simple to play for black by any means. You know, I also see, let's say e takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes b2. Maybe then I play queen b5. Might be a good time to do that. So bishop to e5. Inviting knight b5. So is black going for a little rearrangement? Queen e7, probably. Should I play a3? This is the move I've been talking about. I feel like it's a helpful move under almost every circumstance. It does weaken the b3 square a little bit. And there's no threat here. e3, pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes b2, hits the b2 pawn, though. At that point. Could play king g2. King g2 and just see what black does. Maybe they go h5, I play h4. King g2, queen e7. I was thinking queen b5 against that, but maybe that's a little slow. Yeah, it's maybe a little slow. I might want to play this a3 move instead. I think I will. Let's go a3. Not worried about a sack on g3. That definitely doesn't work, right? With both these pawns guarding. So if pawn takes d5, I think I'm just going to play bishop takes d5. Maybe queen takes. I don't know. But bishop takes d5, I thought at minimum. I guess there's bishop takes c3 there. Bishop takes f7. King g7. I think I can take. I don't believe my queen and bishop get disconnected somehow, but that's another possibility. Maybe black can do that. No, maybe not. I don't know. There's two possible captures, but I'm not sure black wants to play either of them. And if bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, take d5, queen d4, I get the pawn back. I'm going to win that pawn on d5. I should be a little bit better in that resulting ending. Probably a draw, but a little bit better. Okay, black thinking a little bit. I don't know if I'm in a position to play b4 yet. Really hard to say. Black goes a4, though. Wow. Really? So that suggests to me pretty heavily black's going to try to take my knight. Feels like that's on the agenda. I think they're making way to try to keep their knight on c5. And they're saying, if you want to just trade down, that's fine by me. That's probably just a draw. There's some bishop d1 type stuff. Knight b5. Knight b5, queen e7, though. Knight d4, maybe. Maybe. But it's hard to get at that knight on c5 in all these lines. Interesting. a4 really wasn't on my radar. But I see what they're going for now. King g2. Like king g2, take. I mean, maybe I can still press, though, there. King g2. Do I just throw it back at him? Okay, let's not spend all our time. King g2 it is. Let's go. Just a useful move. Get the king up a little bit. Get rid of back rank problems. Yeah, knight takes a4 was the move to just simplify, but I still am holding out hope, guys, with one more pair of minor pieces on board to get something out of this. Might be time to put those hopes away soon, but let's at least try to force black to play a few more accurate moves. Yeah, because now, like I said, if takes, queen takes at least comes with check. Black still might do that, though, in some cases, but bishop d1, nah. h4, probably black's just going to go h5. Takes. Queen b4, maybe? Is that a move? Queen b4, knight d3, perhaps? Not seeing much. Knight b5, queen e7. d6, then? Knight b5, queen c7, queen e7, d6. It's a little risky, though. Let's try it. Risky's maybe not the right word, but let's try. I can always stick the knight on d4 if I need to as well. Let's see where black steps with the queen. But I do see a tactical idea. So if queen e7, d6, bishop takes d6, loses to queen d4. But there's bishop f6. So d6, bishop f6, let's say queen to b4. Oh, wait, sorry. d6, they got to move the queen. Yeah, that's not. Let's go here. Let's go knight d4. I'm starting to hallucinate now. d6, I thought the bishop had to move for some reason, but clearly they're going to move the queen. Okay, now that I have the knight on d4, maybe pawn takes e6 starts to become a possibility with trying to get my knight to c6. The knight is somewhat annoying here for black. I think that's for sure. Well, let's say queen f6. What is my next move? Actually, not really sure. because I don't want that queen coming in, or that knight coming into d3. Let's go h4. Yeah, h5. Might have to take on e6 now. Might be time. Take on e6 and then bishop c6 if they take with the d pawn. I actually wonder if h5 bishop takes d4 might have been interesting. But too late now. So bishop c6. Bishop c6, bishop takes d4, pawn takes e5 maybe? e5, d5? What's going on there? It's a weird position. I feel like this might be a surprise to black, but I'm not sure how good it is. Nevertheless, I don't see much better, so I might have to play it. Knight e5, bishop takes b2. There's nothing towards their king, right? Not that I see. Okay, let's try. Trying to take this pawn, I suppose. There's counterplay I got to worry about, though. Like the knight coming into e4, d3. d3 at some point is unpleasant. Not so sure about pawn. Bishop takes d4, pawn takes d4, e5. I think I'm going to play d5 there because queen takes c6 is the cool threat. Black retreats, though. Yeah. So if takes, they want queen a8. Or bishop takes d4 first. Yeah, bishop takes d4 first. Knight f3. Bishop takes b2. Bishop f3 is a offer of a draw, basically. Well, I'm not saying anything better, so let's repeat. Takes, pawn takes. At least I can take the a4 pawn then. Yeah, this might be headed towards a draw. Although black's not leaping at the opportunity to make a draw. Queen d6. Queen b5 maybe? Queen b5, take, b6, e5, queen b4. Now let's keep it tight. King f1. Be really interesting if black took now. But I doubt they will. It's probably not good. King e2. E5, knight b5. Thinking about maneuvering my knight back to c3 now, but I don't even know if this is a good plan. Might have probably should have played king g2 there. Because with my king a little exposed, this is not without risk. What's that move about? Some attempt to play knight e4, maybe. Go queen b5. Queen d6, queen c6. Could I try that? Black's going to try to force it. That did cross my mind. I thought maybe takes king d3. Gotta trade queens. Because if I take the knight, they're going to get at b2. Still probably a draw, but king d3? This feels like it could be mildly uncomfortable for black. Maybe I'm still being optimistic, but my king is a lot closer to the action. Even if I have to accept and isolate a pawn, I'm willing to do that. Bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop a4. Boy, another game that's going the distance, guys. I don't have any short games in Lone Wolf League. No short games. How do I engineer this, though? Because bishop c6, the problem is I'm not even threatening to take because of knight c5. So I'm trying to figure out how I even engineer a threat against this a pawn. Bishop d1, maybe. But then knight c5, knight e4, I gotta watch. You take. Really? So I guess black's gonna try to defend maybe a pawn down opposite color bishop ending, because I can try to do king c4, bishop c6, or just bishop c6 right away now, probably. Black's gonna go e5, I presume. Which I can't stop, in fairness. Okay, but at least I can get the outside pass pawn with all this. So bishop c6, e5. Yeah, it's got to be drawn. Well, maybe. We'll see. We will definitely see. Because my king is in a pretty nice position. It can attack and defend from here. I might be winning. I mean, maybe when I take this pawn and I eventually get an outside past a pawn, black's too far away. Because if they bring their king over, they're going to weaken these guys. So I could play d5, but I'm inclined to just let black take on d4. Yeah, because d5 check. Then king c2, nah, probably shouldn't mess with that. And if I take king c2, there's always bishop f2. So let's take. And now b4. Maybe. b4, what about g5, though? Do I want to play f4 first? That would be sophisticated, but also might invite trades. Maybe bishop d1 to discourage g5. Bishop d1 and then b4 next move. And I can get my pawn on f4. Ooh, tricky. This looks multi-purpose, so I'm going to start with it. I'm more relaxed now because I basically should never lose this. So it's just a question of if I can win. I mean, black's king is kind of far away. I definitely would not have played it this way if I were black. But I'm not sure that I'm winning. We'll see about that. But yeah, I'm trying to stop black from being able to easily trade further pawns. Bring their king. Probably got to play b4. Black's going to go king e7. But then can I think about a4 already? Yeah, with the kingside pawns on board, this is still a little tricky because at some point, if black's king gets too far over, I might hit him with bishop b3. Arguably, I should have played b4 right away, but I wasn't sure about g5. I wanted to discourage g5. So king e7, I think I'm going to play a4. Maybe black should go king e8, so they have the option of bishop e7. I don't know. But even still, I can always play king up, push the a pawn. Black can push their d pawn, but I've got that blockaded easily. Under 30 seconds, I mean, they might blunder something here just concretely and lose. Yeah, king e8. So I think they're trying to reserve bishop e7, which definitely makes some sense. So a4, bishop e7, king c4, where I just push a5 right away. Do you feel like I want to slightly improve bishop position? Maybe bishop f3 first? King c4 first? But if king c4, black might push d3 anyways. So a4, bishop e7, a5 seems too easy for black. So a4, bishop e7, king c4, d3, a5, takes. Let's go for it. At least force black to a tough decision. Bishop e7, king c4, and then what? Maybe d3 is okay, but then I play a5, and that pawn is sprinting. They're going to have to get back real quick to stop it. So I'm trying to control the c5 square with this move. Play a5, but I really want to control c5. Here's where I wish my bishop was a little more active. But I think even on its current square, it can be pretty useful. Stops black from queening, for one thing. And it could pop out on different sides of the board. I think if I can get my bishop to d3, a-pawn pushed all the way to a6 with the bishop supporting and the king roaming, that's where I might be able to somehow win the game. Okay, so a5 here, probably. There's also bishop f3. Now a5's got to be the move. Let's do it. Outside pass pawn, baby. I don't know. Bishop a4, bishop e8 at some point. Black's got to worry. Not to mention d4's hanging. The thing is, I don't know if I want to take d4. It sometimes makes things easier for black, because they can get their bishop on this long diagonal check, go after my pawns too. This is close, though. This is going to be very close between a win for me and a draw. Yeah, black's going to give the pawn. Okay, but they have bishop c5, I guess, in the short term, so I can't take it right away. So do I play bishop f3 check or bishop a4, bishop e8 now? Hold on. Bishop a4, bishop e8. Bishop a4, king b7. Bishop e8. They're going to win my a-pawn, but bishop a4, king b7. And there's bishop f3. Ooh, this is a tough call. Bishop a4, king b7, bishop e8, g5. Pawn takes g5, bishop takes g5, bishop takes f7, h4. I don't think I have quite enough to win there. It's so very close. Maybe f4 first? Ugh. Doesn't feel right, though. Maybe check first, because at least then black's further away from my pawn. Check, king c7, bishop d5. That might be the way. I'm going to try it. Now, I think black has to play king c7. And if I push, black's in time to stop. Only king c7 works. So I was thinking bishop d5 here. I know I can take this pawn, but it's more important, I think, to get at these enemy pawns. So bishop d5, g5, take, bishop takes f7, h4. Still might run into problems there converting. Do I just take the pawn and try to convert? Ah, close call. g5, though. I'm going to go bishop d5. That's what my instinct says. And I think black has to hurry to try to trade everything off on the king side. Might get down to a situation where I have A and F pawns. Maybe that's enough to win. Here, take. Do I play f4 at that point? It is nice that this pawn isn't immediately under attack in these lines. But I think I need to preserve my a pawn. Got to preserve 2 pawns in the end with this opposite color bishops. If f5, I think f4 is probably good. This is a tough call for black. I think they got to go for g5 and hope for the best. And then I'm going to take and probably play f4. Yep. Take f4. Let's do it fast. Now, why am I playing f4? I think I don't want my pawn on f2 attacked after h4 and an eventual trade. So now bishop f7. I think take h4 takes. I think I can keep both my pawns. Oh, but is it? No, that's the right color pawn in that direction. I think I should win there. Close, though. Ooh, it might depend which direction black goes with their bishop. Can I prevent that? I don't think so, really. Let's take. Yeah, so take. And now take. Ooh, but maybe black can send their king to h8. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have taken the pawn? Oh, I don't know. That's a tough call. Oh, this is instructive, though. So black ideally wants their king on h8, and they might get there. I don't know, though. King d6, a6. Yeah, they're going to get there in time, aren't they? a6, bishop b8. No, but I can still prevent their king from getting over, I think. Oh, this is going to be close, guys. This is some study-like endgame. Oh, we got to start with this move. What, bishop g3 now? Bishop g3, can I go king e3? They go king b, bishop b8. Okay, that's the move I was... Oh, I can't go king e5. Oh, no. Oh, wait, but they're on a short diagonal. Wait a second. This move might not be good. King d5? No, but they're going to occupy a longer diagonal soon. Ooh. Yeah, this might be a draw. h6, king e7. h5, king e7. h6, they take. They're in time. Ah, I think I blew it. There might not have been a win, but oof. Yeah, I can't stop them from playing bishop a7. And then if I win the bishop, it doesn't matter. I got to stop their king from getting over is the main thing. But I don't think I can. King d5, king e7. Could even play king c6, but just bishop a7 there. Let's go h5. Now, I think as long as black plays king e7, it's a draw. I think if they move the bishop, it might lose. Bishop a7, king e5. They should stop king e5. Yeah, they also got to stop my pawn from running. King d5, maybe? Nah. All right. Let's go bishop c4. Yeah, black knows how to draw this. And I don't think there's any way I can prevent it. I think it's a draw. It's the wrong color pawn, or wrong color bishop, rather. Let's move the king up just to see if we can induce some blunder, but I don't even think king b6 is a threat here, unfortunately. Yeah. Black's got a fortress. Well, I'll just show why this is a draw. Yeah, because they're going to hang out in the corner, and we can't ever get them out of there. Wow, good save. Yeah, I don't know if there was a win, but it felt like I almost had one there. Maybe f4. These endings are subtle. Maybe f4. Or not f4, I should say. Because if bishop takes f7, h4. Maybe there's something with g4. I'm going to guess I had a win here, but I couldn't find it. It looked very close. I think bishop f3 was probably good. Even up to the very end, can I stop the king from coming over? Like, if I don't take this pawn, is there a win? Nah, it's probably too little too late at this point. But it's weird because the d-pawn screens black out a lot of times, so there might be something there. I don't know. We both didn't have a lot of time for it. I was really surprised by knight b3. And then especially by knight takes d4. Trying to make a draw this way. It's close. It's close. And a lot of opposite color bishop endings are draws, of course. But yeah, black was very close to losing this. I don't know. I think there was a win. I'm disappointed I couldn't find it. It was good defense. Black realized what was up right towards the end when they ran their king to h8. But maybe there was something prior to that. I mean, I'm happy I had a chance like that because I really wasn't working with a whole lot throughout this game. Felt like on knight d5 I was getting a little something, but this never felt like anything black shouldn't be able to deal with. You know, I actually thought here, if black didn't play h5, that maybe I was almost in a semi-Zugzwang. Thing is, I don't know what else black would play than h5. But it's somewhat difficult to find a move without allowing counterplay. Move for me, that is. It might be an exaggeration. Maybe I can always just take. Ooh, yeah. So I'm going to be really curious about that ending, of course. I think there was a win. Tough, though. Bishop endings are tough. Opposite color bishop endings notoriously drawn. Let's take a look. Okay. Ooh, there was a win. No, G5. It was a draw, and then G5 blunders. Wait, how did I blunder? Oh no, A6 is a blunder? King E4 is the win. How does that work? King E4, bishop B8? Oh, King E4, bishop B8, King F5, and I can actually prevent black from getting to the corner. Oh man, there was a win here. I played A6 too soon. King E4, only winning move. Boy, that's not so obvious though, is it? But the basic gist of this is we need to do this. I need to get my king to G6, and then the H pawn just rolls, and black's stuck defending the pawns. Ah, that's too bad. That's funny that G5 is the losing move, because I thought that was forced. And evidently so did black. D3 is better. D3 take, bishop C5, go for the counterattack. Then if king E2, F6, and then what, trade pawns? Somehow black can draw this. Really? This is a draw, huh? Guess the pawns are all on the same side of the board. That's a hard call, though. Ooh. Pretty well played game. Yeah. Even throughout, and then I had that instructive win, but I couldn't find it. You know, I think at this point, I saw that Black's king was coming over, and I think I just didn't see a way to stop it, but there was still one. That's amazing. King E4, which gains a tempo to get the king to G6. That's a big thing. It's actually less about pushing the pawns. So the question is on bishop G3, I think I play A6. Yeah. And that's going to force black to attend to the pawn. Not H5 though, because that allows black to get in. They attack the bishop, and that gains the tempo to get the king in. Yeah, so you get this, and then the H-pawn rolls, and black's bishop at some point is going to be overwhelmed. So, like this, for example. And then you can push one of the pawns, A7, force them to take, and then promote. You know, I think one of the reasons I didn't see this is I realized too late that black's king actually stood a decent chance of getting to the corner. And in general, I didn't appreciate having two rook pawns here and what that meant. Because I have the correct rook pawn on this side of the board, potentially supported by my light square bishop. But the H pawn being another rook pawn means that black can do what they did in the game as their primary defensive technique, which is make a beeline for the corner with the king and then have the bishop attend to the pawn that I have the correct color bishop for. So yeah, that's really tough. But not something I can't, you know, potentially see. Looks like black defended pretty well up till that point in this ending. The engine doesn't like E5. It says black should play G5. Take. Okay, this is actually what I was trying to prevent with the whole bishop D1 thing. But I want black to play this way versus trying to bluntly go after my D pawn, because then they can get after my queen side. Get at the queen side over there. Yeah, that's instructive. Instructive ending. F4 was tempting at various times because that would stop G5, but I always thought it would weaken G3. I thought with some weaknesses there, I might not be winning. So what's the technically correct way to draw this for black? Is it that D3 move somewhere? Yeah, it's D3 red at this moment, apparently. This is F6 draw 2. F6 is a more human move. This. Oh, wow, G4? Okay, I don't think I would have found that. I was hoping for something like this. This, too, is apparently a draw. I guess because it's hard to keep my A pawn. That makes sense. And if king b5, then the d pawn is starting to move a little bit. Well, there was a very brief moment there where white was winning, but that's very instructive. A6, such a natural move. Even threatens a7. But it's more important. Pushing the pawns is less important than preventing black's king from getting over. And I didn't have faith in my position at this point that I could do that. I saw what black was doing, and just looking at it briefly with the 2 minutes here, I didn't see any way I could stop that. Because I was very focused on king e5. I wasn't focused on king e4, interestingly. But king e4, king f5, king g6. Kings take funny routes in endgames like this. So, yeah, once again, that's the thing. It's less about pushing the pawns right away. It's entirely about keeping black's king out of the h8 corner, shielding them from the h8 corner. And when I get this construction, I'm doing that. And then the pawns can come up on their own. It doesn't matter if black plays bishop c7, I guess, because then a6 is going to force black to defend against the threat of a7. Tricky, tricky business. And then just to show, let's say there's a transformation, something like this, where black actually assigns the king over to the a pawn. Well, now I can just go and promote my pawn, right? And while black's waiting, we come back. This is winning for white because white has the correct color bishop. Okay, so when this happens, we can always force this king out of the corner. If I had a dark square bishop here, it'd be a draw again, because black could always just bounce in and out of the corner. But now this is a trivial win. So that's the scenario that doesn't work for black, and that's why black hightailed it with the king back over to the king side. But very instructive. Very, very instructive. What about earlier in the game? I mean, it doesn't look like there was much to speak about. And I might keep my analysis kind of brief because that was a long game. As I said, I don't think I ever really had an edge. But I thought I was getting one with knight d5, maybe? So I don't think I had an edge in the opening. It's just showing straight zeros here. But this was a good idea for black. Pretty much neutralized everything I was wanting to do. Because I always was looking at lines like this. Just didn't really see what I was going for. So a draw in a way is the correct result. This game was drawish for most of it. But I kind of got what I wanted later. Black overpressed. Or maybe played a little too optimistically. If they had played queen f6 here repeating, I probably would have taken a draw. And then, I don't know, I kind of regretted playing king f1, king e2, because my king was starting to look a little exposed. But knight b3 really surprised me. But that's sometimes something that happens if your opponent's been defending, even ever so slightly, but just defending a lot of the game. They might leap at the opportunity to try to force a draw, which seems to be technically correct here, but on the surface, it looks dangerous for black. And yeah, they need some accuracy to draw this endgame. I wonder if it's technically losing after e5. We could do some deeper analysis maybe, but yeah, really tough to say. Apparently a4 is a mistake. Wants me to play f4 or bishop a4. Bishop a4 and then f4. This construction makes sense to discourage g5, but like I said, I know from experience, maybe I'm just transferring the weakness to g3 if black's bishop can ever work its way back there. So it's very hard to know in the moment. f4 was good. Yeah, f4 was winning. But in summing this up, I didn't appreciate in advance what would happen when I had 2 rook pawns remaining, because that transformation happened pretty quickly. And I didn't appreciate the importance of trying to cut black off. So what I was trying to do So I can maybe illustrate this with a blunder. So if black plays bishop a7 here, I was always thinking getting my king to e5. Because if I do that, it doesn't matter if black plays king e7, because I can always come in with king f6 at the end. This is more the construction I was thinking of, with the bishop controlling g8, king controlling g7, but from the f file, with the option of going to the g file if needed. But yeah, I didn't think about just leaving the pawns where they're at and making a beeline for the g6 square. In hindsight, it seems obvious, but then again, a lot of stuff seems obvious once you click the engine on and you're no longer making tough decisions in the game. Wow. Okay. Yeah, tough fight. Pretty well played game. Time pressure crept up on us. Well, it didn't creep up on us. It was, a game where exchanges occurred and naturally we're going to be burning time. But we both made some mistakes in time pressure. Good defense by my opponent. Thanks for the game. Again, Faznaz, I'd be curious about your thoughts. I think he wrote some stuff in the chat. Looks like even while the game was going on, because you can do this, you can write notes that only you see while the game is going on in these league games. I think the spectators can see them too, though, if they want. Or maybe just you until the end of the game. I'm not sure. So, very instructive ending there, though, guys. I got to brush up on my end games, apparently. Even though I did the videos for 100 end games, you must know. Not simple. Okay, let me know what you guys think. Hopefully my recording held up for this one. That was a lot of fun. Thanks again to Faznaz for the game. I'll see you guys again soon in round 8. I'm on, what? 6.5 out of, no. This was round 7, right? So I'm on 5.5 out of 7. So on to round 8. All right. Thanks again, guys. Take care. We'll see ya.